Welcome back to another edition of the Knight Report podcast. Somehow we're already on episode 40 of this podcast. It's been a wild ride. But today we're going to discuss a little bit of a spring practice preview. Richie Schneiderite's joining me as usual. First, we're going to talk a little bit about the assistant coaching situation. Richie, what are you hearing with those open roles right now? And when can we expect them to maybe be filled? Or is it a total who knows?
It's honestly, it's like a total who knows at the moment. I know the last update I posted, there's a list of like 12 to 15 names that they had. They met with us, the whole staff met together. There was like 15 people. It ranged from FCS coordinators, who we recently just saw Corey Heatherman get hired by Rutgers as a linebackers coach, to Power 5 level assistants, to GAs, to all the way up to the NFL ranks. There's just so many names out there. I know we've mentioned Ola Adams, who's a former Villanova DC, former Temple DB's coach for a month, and now Denver Broncos assistant DB's coach, I think it is.
Yep.
He's a name. Just going off the list that we had, Ty Greenwood, New Jersey guy. I know he's very intrigued with the job. He's down at North Carolina Central, cornerbacks coach right now, I think it is. We've heard Trey Bell been mentioned, a New Jersey guy, just got the cornerbacks job at Akron with Joe Moorhead. Marvin Questador, Temple safeties coach. These are just a few names that we've been hearing left and right. Obviously, that's only 4 or 5, so there's at least 10 missing candidates that we have no idea who they are. Shiano's very tight-lipped with this stuff, and he doesn't want stuff like this leaking, so I kind of understand that. I don't think we're going to hear much more until spring ball. I know Damaso Munoz has been stepping up as a recruiter lately. I know he kind of filled in when they lost who they lose in the first place. I don't even remember. Panagos? There's a 10th assistant, and Smith, I guess. Whenever they had that 10th assistant role open recently, before the 9th assistant role opened, I guess you want to call it, Munoz and Brandon Fuhrer and a bunch of other guys were always filling the roles. Demir Shaw was one of those guys filling the roles too. So it could be a temporary thing. It could be a permanent thing. Maybe they give the promotion to Munoz and he gets like I don't know, some kind of outside linebackers job or safeties or something. They might just give him something, but I know he's filling the role temporarily. How long that's going to be, I don't know. I do think ideally you want someone in there this weekend, because this weekend you're hosting a bunch of prospects starting on Saturday. And then Sunday, you're going to bring them all to the basketball game too. So recruiting wise, you want someone in there ASAP. Spring ball, I think you can kind of work a little bit and see what's available still. I know it's tough because like you're missing 2 assistant coaches. This is huge. But you have guys like Joe Harris-Simiak, who's coached safeties before, so he could fill in for the secondary temporarily. Technically, the other open spot could go anywhere. We really don't know. I think at this point, they're just going to wait till Tuesday to announce everything. We do know there's some shuffling going on. Augie Hoffman's going to O-line. It sounds like Ulrich is going to running backs. Nuns is staying at tight ends. I think that's all pretty clear. And then Watson's new guy at D-line, Heatherman, linebackers. And then it's just kind of just wait and see at this point.
So I want to take us back. You said that they had a meeting with like 12 to 15 people. Is that just kind of like a spitballing session where you bring a list of guys you think would be a good fit, and then you kind of talk about them? You kind of make your case as to why you think your guy or a guy you worked with previously would be a good fit?
I think it was more of like they've had a meeting before that, and it's more like we have like everyone throw a name out. Let's see what we got. Let's see who's interested. Do you know someone that's interested? Let's throw them on the board. And then I think from there on out, it's more like Shiano and maybe probably his right-hand man, like Joe Susan and someone else, like someone that he really trusts. And it's kind of like, all right, this guy, like, no, absolutely not. That guy, I know him. He's a hard ass. Fuck him. Like, we're done. Him, maybe. Let's keep him on the side right here. And it's like, oh, this guy. If he's interested, put him on the list. Put him at the very top right now.
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of mix and match and then meet again. And it's like, all right, we're down to these 15. Who knows them? Who has connections to them? What do you know about them? What can you tell me about them? And then kind of go from there just to learn more about your final, not final, but semi-finalists, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, because I think the process itself sounds pretty interesting, because I imagine that's how Heatherman's name got brought up, because Harris-Simiak's the only person on staff who had any connection to him at all. So I imagine Harris-Simiak was the one who had to bring him to Greg.
Yeah. And it's just more of like you go down the list again, and it's like, oh, this guy's an FCS coordinator, and he's putting up those numbers?
Yeah.
Get him over here. But
and I think that's kind of where like the guy Ola Adams is at. Like, hopefully you can convince him being a assistant at Rutgers is better than being an assistant DB's coach at Denver, but who knows if that's going to happen. I saw an interview with him, and he said his goal was to be an NFL coach, so he's kind of more towards the goal playing or coaching for an NFL team than
it
college.
Is tough for situations like that. The similar situation would be like a Phil Galliano. I don't even remember how to say it. He's another one. He's like an assistant special teams coach right now, but he's like this close to getting that coordinator role of special teams in the NFL. So it's like, I don't think he'll ever come back. It's another guy that I thought about like putting on the list as a potential 10th assistant, but every time I talk to someone that knows him, it's like, no, he loves the NFL. And it seems like a lot of guys do.
This would have been his like 4th trip to Rutgers. Like I remember everybody hated him the last time he was around. It seems like everywhere he goes, I think he was at Penn State at one point too. Everybody hated him at Penn State.
Surprisingly.
Did they?
Yeah. They liked him as a recruiter. So it's like, yeah, it's interesting. And then another guy like Ross Douglas, NFL right now, sounds like he might be getting a promotion in the near future. So it's just like that one's kind of mute point. Like that's done. He's probably staying there. We've heard David Rowe been mentioned.
Yeah, that's the name I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It sounded like he was near the top of the list, and no coincidence, he gets a promotion and he's making more money. Him and Dana Holgerson, the head coach down at Houston, are like this. Plus, he's very big on the program winning down there. I was told he wants to stay with the winning program. I think they finished like top 15 this year or something. I know it's the AAC at the end of the day, but it's still Texas, and Texas is going to invest. They're in the Big 12 in 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
Yep.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not the same Big 12, but it's still Power 5 football. And they're winning. So at the end of the day, it's hard to just say, all right, see you later. So that's about where we're at right now. We have no names.
I did want to bring one more thing up because I noticed a lot of people talk about this on the boards, complaining when guys leave, especially. It's like, well, why didn't we consider him for the coordinator role? Like, we'll bring up Fran Brown, for example. Fran is a great recruiter.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, all the guys love him. But just because you're a great recruiter and a position coach does not mean that you have the ability to be a good coordinator too, because a coordinator and a recruiter are like two totally different mindsets and two totally different skill sets. Like one is like a tactician, the other is more like people skills. So can you just like put to bed the notion that like we could have kept Fran if we had him as the DC, or 2, why that's just a terrible idea?
I don't even know where to start with this one, just because there's so much to unpack here, and it's just it drives me nuts seeing the boards post about it all the time. Because obviously Fran is a decent coach. I'm not going to say he's a great coach. He's a decent coach. Now, in terms of recruiting, he's Jeff Halfley, and it's like this and this. They are the 2 of the best recruiters I've ever met. They could sell you the bridge over in, the Verrazano if they wanted to. But it's a stupid analogy, I guess, the more I think about it. But it's just he doesn't have the coaching skills to be a defensive coordinator. Obviously, Shiano looked into it and hired a guy 5 years younger than him. That tells you all you need to know right then and there. Now, if they promoted him to DC, would he stay? Probably. But at the same time, is it worth it to sacrifice your defense just to hire Fran or promote Fran a little bit? No, absolutely not. Whereas like a guy like Harris Simiak's going to come in. He's the tactician that you were just talking about. He's the X's and O's guy. He's the guy that's going to change up the schemes at halftime as much as possible. And on top of it all, coordinators don't recruit as much as you think. Yes, Gleason recruits quarterbacks, but he also coaches quarterbacks. It's a little different. Yep. That one's a little different just because all OCs are always probably the quarterback's coach for the most part, and they're always going to recruit their specific quarterback for their offense. That one's a little different, but DCs are rarely going to recruit. How many times have you seen Rob Smith on the road?
I was just about to say that. I doubt he was on the road more than a dozen times full time at Rutgers.
And it's crazy that he had a job in the first place, but that's besides the point. That he still has a job. How? I don't get it.
No.
But Mike Elko.
Well, I mean, Duke just stole them from us, from what I hear.
I can't believe reading the boards on Duke. It's just like, first off, there's Duke football fans. Holy shit.
I know.
Second off, it's just like, how the hell do you hire him? But it'd be different. Like that's a situation where you hire a guy like Fran Brown because you're Mike Elko. You're pretty good at defense already. I can handle the defense as the head coach. Not Rob. You put Fran at DC there, and it's like, Fran, just go out and recruit. I mean, just here's the title, here's the money, go out and recruit. Rutgers can't afford to do that. They need their yes, Graciano's a good defensive coordinator, but he's very hands off now. He wants his coaches to coach. Yep. That's why, as weird as it sounds, Fran, great position coach because his recruiting abilities. I don't think he would be a good DC. Now, him as a head coach, I think he'd be great.
Because head coach is more more CEO and more selling than a coordinator. Coordinators are pure X's and O's, whereas a coach kind of has to oversee everything, and the lifeblood of any program is recruiting.
Exactly. And he wants to be a head coach at the end of the day, and I don't blame him. And this is a huge boost to your resume. I don't care what people are saying, lateral job this and all that nonsense. It's not. It's Georgia. It's your facilities are 10 times nicer than Rutgers. I hate to say it at the end of the day. It's SEC football. It's different down there. And you just won the national fucking title.
Yeah.
Like, there's no question that this is just it's a better program. I hate to say it. Rutgers isn't a rebuild. Georgia is reloading.
Yep.
That's the best way to put it. And it's just, it's different. And I think Fran will be a very good head coach one day, whether that be Temple in 2 years if Stan Drayton makes it or not. But, I think he should have got the Temple job, to be honest. And I think he would have succeeded so well at that Temple job too.
I'm surprised he didn't, to be honest, man.
The AD has connections to Texas, Stan Drayton, Texas, and there you go. They did build a nice little staff down there. I will give them that. But it's just, I think Fran's staff would have been just 10 times better. And the recruiting down there for Temple, for G5, I feel like all you have to do is recruit mid-level, like 3 stars, and like occasional high level, maybe land a 4-star every once in a while, like a Kareem Ali. And you're sitting pretty. You're looking like Matt Rule in the NFL right now. You're making money to suck.
Yeah. And I mean, the transfer portal, like that's just another, if you can recruit, then you're going to do even better than previously too. So
I would have liked to see him. I kind of wish he went to Temple, because the transfer portal for Temple would have been wild.
I know.
But, oh well.
But we might have ended up losing guys to Temple in that situation. Yeah, so maybe it's for the best. Yeah. So I want to talk spring practice preview stuff. I'd like to play a little bit of a game, a little bit of a word association here. I'm going to run through the position groups and just give me your thoughts, what you're excited to see, just what comes to mind when I mention these groups for the spring. Okay. First off, we got to start at the top. Start with quarterback. What are you excited about? What are you expecting to see? What do you think?
Gavin Wimsatt, QB1, no question about it, in my opinion. QB2 is an intriguing one, because Vedral wants to step into coaching, and I think this is his opportunity to step up. Now, people are always like, what if Wimsatt gets hurt, blah, 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 our QB room's depleted. Every QB room in the country is depleted at this point, just because the portal, if you're not good enough to start at like a Georgia, you're transferring. If you're not good enough to start at Ohio State, you're transferring to LSU and winning the title.
Or Texas.
Like, look at Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, top 5, number 1 kid, 5-star kid, transferred out of Ohio State after not winning a job within.
But he got that bag.
Yeah, he ot $1 million, so he don't give a shit. No. Now, Wimsatt does have a bag. He could just up and leave, but I doubt it. But not giving ideas.
He doesn't seem like that kind of kid. He seems like he loves it at Rutgers. He's like in the front row, the student section for basketball games all the time.
If you follow them on Instagram, like any of those guys, they're nuts in the locker room too. All the jersey.
Oh yeah.
He's right in the middle too, and I'm like, holy shit.
Yep.
Nah, he loves it at Rutgers. He's QB1 in my opinion. QB2 is the battle I'm really intrigued about, and I want to learn more about, because I think Evan Simon has more potential than Vedral. But Vedral might be the better quarterback right now. And if he really wants to get into coaching, I think Vedral's kind of starting to understand his role. It's more of like, I'm going to be a coach one day. I don't really have a future as a quarterback in the professional leagues. So let me just kind of get into coaching now. But in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that they have depth just in case.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be shocked if QB2 was Evan Simon to start the season, or even throughout the whole year. I think it's more of they're probably going to put the Ord sign there just because there's so many options you can do. But I think you give Simon that number 2 spot, keep him happy, keep him on the roster for at least another year or two while you can still rebuild this QB depth. And then after those two, it's a guessing game. You have Austin Alberici, who throws a beautiful ball in practice. He's just 5'7".
Oh, is he really?
No, he's maybe not 5'7". He's like 5'9", 5'10". It's like my height, but he is really small. But he throws a really nice ball. And ironically, me and Cratch talk about it all the time. I'm like, dude, I can't wait till he gets playing time. Because he looks
in
good.
The spring game, maybe.
It's like even his like highlight tapes in high school look good, and it's just like it's funny. But I think Gavin Rupp steps up and is probably QB3, quote unquote, if you want to do that.
Okay.
I don't think they go to the length of naming a QB3. I think it's just going to be QB1, QB2A, and 2B. But that position group is going to be fun to watch. Gavin still has some work to do in terms of accuracy. There's no question about that one. There's some ugly throws we've seen even this year during the season. He needs to work on some of that, but he has a good feel for the pass rush. He's mobile, and he's going to create so many plays with his legs. I think even if the offensive line falters as it did last year a little bit, he's going to be able to extend these plays just an extra couple seconds, and it's going to make such a difference.
Yep. Plus, he's still learning to be a quarterback. Like a lot of guys come into their college program being a starting quarterback for Pee Wee, middle school, high school, and that's their main sport. That wasn't the case with Gavin. So I think we're going to see a lot of growth from him from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
Let's do the running back room next.
That's a tough one. I think it's just a giant or. I think it's a RBBC for you fantasy guys. That's running back by committee. It's full on. Like, it's interesting because like Kyle Monangai probably would have got a ton of snaps in the Gator Bowl should he have been healthy. Wasn't healthy. He also, I think, the second leading rusher on the team last season, but most consistent, I guess, in terms of yards per carry. But they all kind of average similar yards per carry between Pacheco, Monangai, Aaron Young. And then I think it's just an Aaron Young or Monangai. I think that's going to be like 1A, 1B. And I think you could even argue that 1C would be Jameer Wright Collins because he was so like hyped up all off season long. They were telling us about how this guy's going to be great. He's going to be our best power back. He's going to be phenomenal. And I know a lot of people kind of shut it down after that because he got injured and didn't play much. But now that he's healthy, I think he's going to be a lead power back this year in terms of goal line stuff and maybe third down, short yardage third down. I can't talk today. And then add in like an Al-Shadi Salam who can kind of mix and match, and he's so versatile, and he's another potential third down guy, but he's a little bit different. He's not a power back. He's more of like I don't want to compare him to Darren Sproles, but it's very similar in terms of build. He's like a short, stocky, fast guy that can catch the ball to the backfield. I think it's those four definitely. I know a lot of people want to hype up Sam Brown. I wouldn't be shocked if he redshirted, to be honest. He's not arriving till summer, and that hurts him so much developmental-wise.
Sure.
But I do think the main backs are going to be Monangai and Young, and that's where it's going to be interesting because these two haven't looked phenomenal. They've shown glimpses at times. I think Jameer Wright Collins is going to surprise some people, though. I think he's going to get more carries than you think, and that's why it's going to be a running back by committee. It might just be like, who's the hot hand today? This guy just ran for 20 yards. Keep him in there. This guy ran for 2 yards. Get him out. Like, it's going to be a lot of shifting, I think.
Yeah, Jameer Wright Collins seems to be the guy we've heard has the most potential for a couple of years now. So hopefully he stays healthy and can really show out in spring. What are you most excited about from the wide receiver room?
Taj Harris.
Taj Harris?
No question about it. Like, this one is going to be nuts, and I can't wait to see this. He might be better than Bo when all is said and done. He's going to put up crazy yardage. It's hard to say. I know a lot of people look at his numbers and they're like, oh, what? He didn't do much last year. He also kind of quit the team
like 4 games right?
last year.
Yeah.
We pulled the Raheem Blackshear, which is fine, sort of.
Yeah, it's funny how our fans don't give a shit when we benefit from those situations versus when we don't.
Yeah, it's interesting. He reminds me he's actually kind of similar to Bo with his like yards after the catch. Once he gets the ball in his hand, he's really dangerous, and that's where I think he might be more dangerous than Bo. He's going to be really good as long as they get protection, and he's got I hate to say it, he might have a better quarterback than Bo ever did during his 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years, 4 years. I forget what it was.
I don't think that's very controversial at all.
No, I hate to say it though. But after that, spring's going to be interesting because you're going to see some young guys because I don't think Cruikshank's going to participate. Although he does look healthy and he's doing, again, he's another one doing these Jersey club moves in the Instagram videos. And the knees are bending and it looks pretty well. So he looks pretty good. But the other battle I'm intrigued about is going to be Sean Ryan or Shameen Jones as wide receiver 2. And I think you might even be able to argue an or there for Isaiah Washington as well. I think that's going to be a really intriguing one. I don't know who's going to win out there. Shameen's
they are all like very similar archetypes, though. Those big body, like not super fast, but types.
That's where I think Washington and Ryan are kind of like that build. But Shameen Jones also offers a little bit different. I think he's a little on the shorter side. I think he's less than 6'1", but I think he's more like 5'11", 6 foot. He's the veteran. They're all veterans, kind of. I think Isaiah Washington's been here 3-4 years. He hasn't done a whole lot, but he's looked good when Noah Vedral hasn't been the quarterback, ironically. Sean Ryan put up almost 400 yards last year. And that's in the West Virginia offense that struggles as well. So now give him Gavin Wimsatt and maybe he looks a little better. And then Shameen Jones he's been up and down. He has a 100-yard game. He has a 10-yard game. He has a 100-yard game. He's got 20-yard game. And it's like, he's so close to getting all that potential. And then after that, I think the slot position is going to be either Brandon Sanders or Joshua Youngblood. I don't think it's a lock that Youngblood gets it, because I do think Sanders is going to fight for that one. He did fight for – he actually, I guess, held off Youngblood early on in the 2021 season and kind of assumed that role when Cruikshank was out. So it's going to be interesting to see these position battles. I know nothing's kind of set in stone, but I think the only thing that would be set here is Harris and Cruikshank, and then it's a guessing game for the backups and the wide receiver too.
About tight end room, what are you excited to see there?
Johnny Langan. I don't know if you follow him on. Again, I follow these guys on Instagram. Yeah. Johnny Langan's posting Instagram videos of him running routes with Austin Albericki, throwing him some beautiful balls. I think he's tight end one. I think there's no question about it. I think they wanted Stellanos because he would have been a nice fit here. And they do run a ton of two tight end sets. So you're going to see Konopka. You're going to see Alimo. I think Tajay Moore is going to step up as tight end 3, quote unquote, if you want to say 1-2 or 1-2A, 2B again, and then 3. But I think he'll step up. He's shown some pretty strong hands before. I think Mike Higgins might even see some playing time too.
Is he here for the spring or summer?
I got to double check. I think he's a summer guy, but I'm not 100% sure actually on that one. But either way, if they're going to run these sets, then we're going to have to. But if they're going to run these sets, they're going to have to play a bunch of guys, and that's where you expect Konopka to step up. He's shown glimpses at times if they use the tight ends correctly. That's the big issue is are they going to use these guys? And if Johnny's Langan is tight end 1, you can get so tricky now because now you technically have a second quarterback on the field. But if you saw him, he put on some serious muscle this offseason.
Oh, yeah, he's big.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about this on the boards. If he was just to fully buy into either the tight end, I think he would have been a hell of a linebacker too. If he bought into one of these other positions other than quarterback from day one, I think the sky's the limit for the kid. I think he's going to be very, very good this year. And I think he's going to surprise some people.
For sure. Next up, offensive line. This is a very interesting one. What are you excited to see?
A lot of mixing and matching here that you can do. You could do the 2 transfers as tackles and DiRenzo and Tyler. You could Reggie Sutton, I think, is a solidified starter at guard if healthy. Mm-hmm. That's the big issue there. Gus Lewinskas is probably the starter at center. After that, it's mix match. You can put DiRenzo at left tackle or left guard. You could put Tyler at right tackle or left tackle. You could put Holland Pierce at right tackle or left tackle. Iron Brown looked good at times last year, and he could play guard. Curtis Dunlap is a former 4-star that showed glimpses year 1 at Minnesota, then got hurt, then kind of bounced back a little bit, but still struggled last year. He's a guy that could get some playing time. Kobe Asamoah is on campus already, and he's a guy who I think could push Zelinskis for starter reps, but I don't think he's going to be able to. Brian Felter's a guy who has experience. It's very interesting because I think they're kind of confident now because you don't move your starting guard in Troy Rainey, who started 4 or 5 games back to defense.
I wanted to talk about that. Yeah,
confident in something here. So and don't forget Tunde Fadakasi was a 2-deep guy year 1.
Yep.
He fell off year 2 in the 2-deep, but that's also just because a guy like Holland Pierce came in and they're like, holy fuck, this kid's huge. Put him in.
Yeah, and just because a guy doesn't start for us doesn't mean they won't be a valuable piece of the offensive line rotation either. Like guys who can play multiple positions are so valuable, and we need to be probably 8, 9, 10 guys deep on the offensive line to really be effective.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I even forgot to mention transfer Mike Chafani, who I think he might he's still learning the position a little bit, but if they're going to put him at center, which it sounds like, he could potentially, he's got experience compared to Zelinskis and Asamoah. So it's like maybe he centers his spot because he struggled at guard last year for Colorado State. Put him inside, and if he could snap well, maybe he figures it out. And it was all about adding depth too. It's not all about adding starters. Like, DiRenzo is probably a solidified starter. Willie Tyler, I don't even know if you can consider him a solidified starter right now because Holland Pierce did look good at times. But I think it's just more about improving that line from 1 to 10, like you said. So like Trafani is better than the 9th or 10th guy they had last year. Willie Tyler's better than arguably 5 or 6 of the guys last year.
Yep.
It is interesting. And then Dunlap, who wasn't even healthy last year, is probably better than 5 or 6 of the guys last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they mix and match. Regardless, this is another position group that they just love to rotate guys in and out. I know people started speculating that, like, with Augie running the show now here, are they still going to rotate? That's not changing. That's like a Gleason thing, I'm pretty sure. I don't think that's Augie has as much control over that. It's just more about getting that group ready. So like if they have to come in, go switch. It's not like they handle like everything. Like I think this is all Gleason's schemes. Gleason runs the entire show on offense, in my opinion. And I think that's just something he does. He wants as many linemen rotating in and out as possible that are contributing.
For sure. I think the most jarring thing for you watching practice is going to be the size difference between the offensive line from last year to this year. Because every guy we brought in is massive. Outside of Asamoah, who's still massive, but he's only like 6'3". Everybody we brought in is 6'5", 6'6". So
it's going to be cool to just see, like, you're going to see them walking in, and it's going to be like DiFrenzo, it's Dunlap, Willie Tyler, Holland Pearson. Be like, what the fuck?
Is this what a Power 5 offensive line room looks like?
I'll never forget it, because I went down to Alabama, I guess the year before the whole COVID thing happened, and my dad's a big Alabama fan, so we went down and got to peek a little bit because of someone that was down there, and they got to watch a little bit of practice.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was cool, and I'm just like standing there, and I'm just like, I was at Rutgers practice like a week before, and I'm like, how do they feed them down here? Like, it was so different though to see. Like, it's interesting to see like some of these schools in person and their practices in person, because you just get a different view on everything. And
yeah, for sure.
This is why they compete. They got fucking 6'7" across the board, and that's their backup line.
And they're not even like just like doughboys. Like, I don't know if you've been following along with the NFL Combine check-ins today. Evan Neal weighed in at like 6'7", 337. And when you see him in his interviews, dude looks like he's like 275 pounds. He doesn't look like he's got a single ounce of fat on him.
It's insane. And that's where a guy like Jay Butler is going to help a lot. He's going to have to mold some of these guys a little bit. I think it's a wake-up call for like a guy like JD DiRenzo and Willie Tyler. I think we'll get a little bit of a wake-up call, because they're going to walk in and they're like, yeah, we've been doing workouts forever. And it's like, yeah, you've been doing Sacred Heart and ULM. Wake the fuck up. Here we are.
Yep.
But I think they'll still adjust.
Yeah, that's the one personally I'm most excited to hear about. But that's just because we can only go up from where we were. And I think we're going to make a significant bump up.
It's tough. It's going to be tough, though, because we can only say so much about the practices. But we'll give you guys as much as we can.
Next up, defensive line. What are you excited to see?
Youth movement, pretty much. It's obviously Touré still there. MyJ's got experience. Ahanatu's got experience. Other than that, Aaron Lewis, Cam Stewart, Wesley Bailey, Keontae Hamilton. I think they're all going to contribute. I think they're all going to do some pretty nice things. I think Hamilton's potential's through the roof. I can't see a way he doesn't start. I think Wesley Bailey has a ton of potential too. He's still so new to the position. When he came in, he was a tight end for his entire football career until his senior year. Switched over to DN, and it's like offer. And he showed up at a Rutgers camp once, and I remember me and Todd Hunt were watching him. We're like, holy shit, who the hell is that kid? And they're like, oh, that's some tight end from Canada. And we're like, tight end? What the like? He's playing DN. Like, he looks good. Like, he's quick. He's lengthy. Got a crazy wingspan. This is nuts. This kid's good. They better offer him. And then I think they ended up landing him later that year. It's closer to signing day, I think it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember him being a very late addition to the class.
Yeah, so no, hell of an addition there. But and I think Cam Stewart is just massive. And I wouldn't be shocked if he got bumped inside because of how big he is. But he's so athletic on the edge. It's crazy to see. But the one guy I didn't even really talk about a lot is Aaron Lewis. Aaron Lewis has the craziest wingspan of all time for a defensive end. He's going to be so deadly on that edge. I think he's going to have a hell of a year. And then add in Marquise Watson, who's developing these guys. Because the position group, I hate to say it, under Panagos did take a dip last season. Yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence. But at the same time, they started to rotate in younger guys. So maybe it might have just been a developmental year, if you want to argue that. Because you saw guys like Tverdov losing their spot, which was kind of random and weird. But I think under Watson, I think this group's going to really develop nicely. And I think they had 2.5 sacks was the leader, or 3.5 sacks was the leader with Mohamed Touré last year.
It was bad last year. We just couldn't get any pressure at all. We probably had like bottom 10 pressures in the entire NCAA in terms of like team stat.
I wouldn't be shocked. And then get Mohamed Touré another year at the end, on the edge, whatever you want to call him. He was DN linebacker. I think this is going to be a lot better year for them. Now it's still a lot of young guys there, so I wouldn't expect like crazy numbers to just start appearing, and I don't expect like a 10 sack guy. I think you get a couple 5, 6 sack guys. I think it makes sense. And Keontae Hamilton's the one I'd be watching out for in the middle.
I think this is another position, though. It really only can go up from last year because we were so bad along the defensive line.
Yeah,
so
it'd be a struggle. Plus, you don't have Rob Smith calling the show anymore, so
that's true. Maybe we'll get some exotic looks. I don't really know much about Harris Simiak other than what I've read, so it'd be exciting to see what he's cooking up.
It's gonna be interesting.
Next up, linebacker. What are you excited to see here?
This is scary.
Yeah.
It's clear as day that, like, you post about the transfer stuff all the time. It's clear as day they want another linebacker.
Yep.
And I don't think there's any question about it that Tyreen Powell is the one solidified starter. And he's kind of the new modern age linebacker where he kind of can do just about everything. He's a surefire tackler. He's pretty good in coverage. He played mostly DB in high school a little bit. He switched to linebacker, I think, senior year, junior year, whatever it was. He looks really good. I have no question he'll actually have a pretty good season for his first full-time starter position. The other spots what worries me is I guess you got a veteran in Deion Jennings who's probably going to step up a little bit or have to. Mm-hmm. I guess you have no choice at this moment. Other than him, Moses Walker arrived early. I think he'll play a lot this year out of necessity. I like Kyrie Banton a lot, but I'm told he kind of has to learn the playbook and learn the schemes a little bit better before contributing. But he's a guy that freak athlete, and I think has all world potential. And he kind of like his game reminds me of the Kasim Green, where he's a true sideline to sideline backer that's going to kill you if you even try to come across the middle. He hits so hard, it's insane. But again, if he starts learning the plays and the playbooks a little bit better and learning the game of football better, I think the sky's the limit for Banton. And I think a combo of like Banton and Powell in the future could be phenomenal. But they clearly want a stopgap here and just someone that can fill the role for this season. And that's where a guy like the West Virginia guy who you posted about, Josh Chandler, could be. But
because clearly talent is not the issue; it's experience. Like they need veteran presences there, and really, who do they have? Singleton left?
Nope, gone. So
Jennings is the only guy who's really had experience.
That's the only experience they really have there. I'm putting together the depth chart, projected depth chart heading into spring for this weekend, and I sat there with linebacker. I'm like, I don't know. I put Moses Walker as a starter.
I was going to say, nothing would surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if Moses Walker is a starter from day one. Like, that kid is so talented. But here's the other thing that a lot of people kind of forget. We only really play 2 linebackers at a time.
Yeah.
So it's not as big of an issue to not really have that settled because we really only have one other role that we need to fill.
Yeah. That's going to be tough. So that's why I think if you could just find a transfer, like I was so tempted to just put transfer as like the linebacker 1 or linebacker 2. And it's just like, I don't know who they're going to get because there's just so many names. Like I said, the West Virginia guy was the one we mentioned. There was another one that we were talking about yesterday. I can't remember.
Eldrick Robinson.
Yeah. Eldrick Robinson.
Yeah,
I know I talked
Georgia Southern.
He said Heatherman introduced the program to him. Nothing crazy. He's some of these kids' recruitments are just so weird because he's like, it's like, did they talk about an offer at all? He goes, no, I didn't ask. I'm like, what? And I was like, do you ask about an offer? Like, don't they just give it to you kind of? And he's just like, you know what? You're right. Let me ask a couple of these schools. And then all of a sudden he starts tagging me in tweets and I'm like, offer from ECU, offer from Appalachian State, offer from Marshall. I'm like, did you just ask every coach? And like, yeah, I was just kind of curious. Like, they never told me if I had an offer. They said they wanted me to join them. They never said offer. And I was like, oh, okay. So I guess there's no.
I mean, it could be fairly ambiguous though, because you want me to join you, but does that mean I have any financial support joining you, or am I a walk-on? Like, it
was just wild to see. I was just like shocked, and I was like, okay. And then he starts tagging me, and it's like offer. I was like, all right, cool, congrats, I guess. But
that kid had a pretty crazy true freshman season. He didn't grade well on PFF, but he was putting up some big stats by the end of the season.
Yeah. Now the final one, the fun one.
All right, last position group, DBs. What are you excited to see?
This is going to be so interesting because I think Max Melton's going to be phenomenal as long as he stays out of trouble. I got to mention it. Kassan Abram was all PFF first team last year, Big Ten, all Big Ten PFF, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Longer Beam showed glimpses. Christian Braswell's back, healthy, so he should be fine as like a CV3, CV4, whatever you want to call him. Yep. I think Max Patterson's going to make some noise there too after the move from wide receiver to DB. Cornerback, whatever. Christian Isian, I think that's solidified. The other safety spot is where I question a lot of things. Desmond Igbinosun looks so goddamn good in that Gator Bowl.
Oh my God.
How do you keep him off the field?
I don't think you can. I think they have to kind of, I know that for some reason, there was a lot of mocks early in the season with like Avery Young going really high in the draft. I don't know how. I don't know if they weren't even watching him, but I don't see that at all.
I think if you're going to run these nickel formations, you're going to have three cornerbacks out there. I think I honestly, you put Kassan Abram in the slot, and then kind of, I hate to say it, Avery Young, you're going back to cornerback. Good luck.
It's a more valuable position anyway. That's probably where he wants to be.
Yeah, and it sounded like when he first moved, he wasn't too happy about it, but then he kind of adjusted and he was like, all right, I can make this work. I'd probably put him back at cornerback. I don't know if I'd make him the starter, and I'd actually argue that Christian Braswell, if healthy, could be starter number 2, 3, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I could see a rotation where it's like Melton, Braswell, Abraham, Izzy, and Igbinosun. The issue with the safeties is if you move Avery Young, there's zero depth back there.
Yep.
I don't even know who, I'm struggling to put Christian Isian's backup right now because, I don't really know. I like a guy like Shaquan Loyal to move back there. I think he's a pretty damn good player. He's got crazy big, like Saquon Barkley-like legs, which is pretty wild to see, when you're in practice. Yep. But he's a pretty good DB. He's another guy that's still kind of learning the game and stuff. I don't even know who else. Elijah Mack, maybe. There's really not a ton of options there. And I'm actually a little shocked they didn't pursue a safety via the portal, unless they're that confident in Igbinosun starting.
Yeah, I mean, they did look into a few, but it's definitely not. Yeah. I mean, just based on volume alone, it doesn't seem to be a priority, like offensive line and wide receiver and linebacker seem to be.
Yeah, so I wouldn't be shocked if Avery Young moved back. Igbinosun is in. It's a good starting lineup. It's just the backup safeties scare me. I mean, you just got to hope. You're kind of doing what you're doing with the QB room, and you're just kind of praying that nothing happens all season long.
Yep, for sure. So spring practice, when does that actually start up? I know it's next week at some point. Do you have a specific date?
It starts Tuesday. I don't know what the date is. I think it's like the 8th or something.
Okay.
Yeah, the 8th. It definitely starts Tuesday. I don't know when they're going to let us in. Usually it's just like one practice per week, and it's usually like you're not seeing much. And even if you do see something, it's like, don't say a word.
Yeah. Do you actually get to talk to any of the coaches or players during the spring, or when is that period that you actually get to?
So they said that's going to start pretty immediately. Based off talking to SIDs and stuff. They said that's going to start ASAP. We're going to get introductions to the coaches, and then we'll probably never talk to them again. I kind of wish, as much as I hate to dig on Ash, but I did like his policies. I thought that was kind of cool. It was a little different. It was like, hey, here's 15 or 25 minutes. You can report whatever you want for 25 minutes. After that, get the hell out. So, and I think that kind of helped a little more. Then, I like seeing the whole practice, yes, because it helps to write stories, I guess, a little bit. But I almost wish we could just write whatever we want for those 25 minutes.
Yep.
Even if I see a couple glimpses, I can make I can tell little stuff here and there. Oh shit, that kid's fast. That kid, oh my god, just watching. I'm watching this. I'm watching a Sean Munnerlin boss somebody, and I'm just can't post it. It's tough, but I don't know. It's an intriguing one, but we are going to get to talk to the new assistant coaches and Watson and Heatherman and maybe 2 others at this point. I don't know. Harris Simiak's probably going to talk, I would assume, early on. After that, I hope we get to talk to Gleason again because we haven't talked to him in I don't know how long. And it kind of sucks because there's so many questions we have about the offense and that we just can't ask. You can ask Shiano, but I do think it's still Gleason's room over there. And it's just I want to ask him about the quarterback. I want to ask him about this scheme. I want to ask him about the offensive lineman and how hard it is to shift between, hey, you just went from your guy for an Aldridge to now Augie Hoffman, who probably has different techniques.
Yep.
Stupid.
Yeah, especially with a guy like Gleason, who is, well known for his innovative mind. He would probably have a lot of illuminating answers for different questions that you have. And it's unfortunate there's not really an availability there. Yeah,
it kind of sucks. But that's where a guy like Ash had McNulty and Jay Neiman talk each week, and I count me out on Jay Neiman. I don't want to talk to that guy ever again. But that made me fall asleep a few times. But McNulty's were always good press conferences. He was always live. He was always talking. And it was just, I feel like Gleason would be the same way. And it would just be nice to talk about schemes and stuff. But I understand it from Greg's perspective because it's been mentioned before that like a lot of coaches tend to watch these press conferences and watch these post-practice videos, not for the, well, for the coach press conferences, it's more to learn about their schemes and what they're talking about. For the post-practice interviews, it was interesting because I talked to a coach the other day. He's like, yeah, I used to watch your videos back when you were posting them during Ash era. And I'm like, why? He goes, you look in the background, you can always see like a little like couple things going on. And it's like,
oh, interesting.
The young quarterback throwing a little route there. Huh. Oh, to the number one receiver too. Okay. Just watching like
might be a package for him in the season at some point.
Yeah. So now it's like put the banner up, put Greg up against the shed. Make sure no one sees anything. It's funny. It is interesting though. I never thought about that stuff. And it's just like even if it's like a blurry background, it's like you still see some stuff and it's like, oh shit, all right. So if you want to go back on YouTube and go check those out, there's a bunch of like you see Johnny Langan throwing throws that like I don't even know who it was. Isaiah Washington, like freshman year.
Yeah. But and the spring game, what's the date of it? It's like I know it's on a Thursday. It's April 20 something.
21st, April 21st.
April 21st. I think that's on BTN at 6 or 6:30.
I mean, it's not bad because it's a Thursday. It's whatever, but it's just like it's a Thursday.
Yeah, I wonder how many people show up for that. What the tailgating scene will be like there. I'm sure it'll be pretty cool.
I'm intrigued because like it's like I guess some people have spring break because I guess it's the week. Is that the week of Easter?
No idea.
I don't even know when Easter is. I give up. I'm assuming it's either the week of Easter or the week before Easter. I can't remember.
Okay.
I think it's the week of Easter. Some people like might have off Friday for some reason. But yeah, I don't like the idea. I think it's stupid. But I'd rather just have a Saturday afternoon, make it like normal football, spring weather, kind of football-ish.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, there you go. But
I remember when I was at Rutgers, they had it as part of like Ag Field Day and Rutgers Day. The actual spring game would happen. Yeah. It was like
someone mentioned it this year. I think Rutgers Day is like the week before or something.
Okay.
After. Yeah, April 30th. So it's like that would make so much more sense. Like I don't get it.
It fit in so well, but at the same time, we're part of the Big Ten now, and the BTN and the network people tell us it's going on this day. We don't really have much we can say to dispute that. So.
I know it sucks, but so Thursday night games are a wave of the future, I guess.
Yep. And kind of moving on, and speaking of like our TV stuff, we do have a special guest for the back half of this pod. Former Rutgers quarterback and Rutgers great, and now Rutgers announcer Mike Teel is joining us. And now joining the show, Rutgers legend Mike Teel. Mike, thanks for joining us. You're at the airport right now, so I appreciate you taking some little bit of your time out of your schedule. Seems like you're pretty busy, so welcome on to the Night Report podcast.
Thanks for having me. There's always time for Rutgers football, especially with spring ball right around the corner.
Absolutely.
So Mike, I'm going to jump right into this. Spring ball, you've obviously been through it with Shiano a couple times. Just kind of break it down for us. Is it a little hectic? Is it crazy? Or is it kind of just more mellow than training camp?
It's different than training camp. You know, there's an edge of training camp where you're getting ready for a season, where you're preparing to, go play, in this case now a Big Ten schedule. The thing with spring ball is you play good on good all spring, and you get to really challenge yourselves against the ones. It's ones versus ones, twos versus twos, threes versus threes, and you get to kind of line up against a guy across from you every day and get better, or every other day, the 15 practices or whatever it is. But you really push yourself mentally and physically during spring ball. A little different than training camp, because at the end of spring ball you have some time to recover and then get ready for the summer program, whereas training camp is you're getting ready for a season.
For sure. Mike, given how much rosters kind of turn over each spring today versus when you were playing, how much does that play a factor into, because we're talking transfer portal, we're talking so many high school kids now coming for the spring semester. Does that play an outsized role in the spring now, getting those guys ready for the fall season?
Yeah, I think it's a huge impact on the game. You look at the high school kids that enroll early to get into spring practice. They get a a 15 practice jump on all the kids that come in the summertime for the fall. So for those guys, it's extremely important to get acclimated. You're not going to win a job during the spring. No one's going to win a job during the spring. The jobs will be won during training camp. But what the spring does for the young guys is it gives them a chance to get reps in the Rutgers offense. If you look at, the guys that have been there that are younger in the program throughout the course of the season, they're scout guys and they're practicing as if they were Penn State or Ohio State or, Michigan every week. So they get a chance to really play Rutgers football, which would be the first time for a lot of these guys. For the transfers, it gets them caught up to speed and gets them ready for training camp so they can go, and feel comfortable with the system, feel comfortable with the calls, feel comfortable with each other, and help that transition as, this whole transfer portal has really changed the game of college football.
So, Mike, I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, your second year at Rutgers. Or maybe, I guess, third year, actually, if I think about it correctly. You went in your first year, you got some good game experience, similar to Gavin Wimsatt this past season. Then you're going into your second year. You're basically the starter come spring. Or I guess you had to win the job technically, but you and Gavin were both like kind of starters going into spring. Just take us through your mindset going into your second season like that.
Yeah, so for me, I actually had a redshirt year in there. So I had an extra year compared to where Gavin came in early.
Yeah.
He's still kind of playing catch up to what my transition was like. Mine was definitely a little longer. But that being said, as you come into spring, you have a chance to kind of solidify yourself as a starter. And, I think everyone expects and knows that Gavin's going to be the starter. I think for him, it's going to give him an opportunity to really become a leader. The quarterback position, you can't lead until you're out there making plays. You can say as much as you want from the sideline, but only one guy plays that position. And for Gavin, he, kind of like my freshman year, my redshirt freshman year, he was able to get a bunch of reps this past fall, get a feel for what college football was like. But now going forward, it's his team and his leadership style and his leadership ability will take over and come out. And that's the exciting part during spring. You really kind of get to take ownership of the position, and it really sets you up for the summertime.
Like, if you had a chance to talk to Gavin at all, because obviously he's the future of the program, and you guys had similar roles, obviously playing quarterback for Rutgers. You both have probably been 3-year starters at least, if all things work out with Gavin. But have you had a chance to kind of mentor him or talk to him at all?
A little bit, it was tough timing when he came in. Obviously, they're in the middle of the season, and when he came in, I don't think Coach Shiano or Coach Gleason would have wanted him to talk to anyone because his head was spinning between trying to find out what class he was taking and how to get from Livingston to Bush to College Ave to Cook Douglas. But I did have a chance before one of the games. I was with one of the coaches pregame on the field. Before all the players came out dressed, they'd go out and throw the ball around and stuff like that. And we had a chance to talk for a couple of minutes. And I was super impressed with him for being, really should have been a senior in high school. Spoke well, looked you in the eye when you talked to him. And, again, we didn't talk X and O's and I didn't talk to him for a while, but you could see that he was engaged and interested in wanting to learn. And I think that's a really important quality for your young quarterback and a young player, right? You always want to learn and you always want to try to be a sponge and try to take in as much as possible from anyone that you talk to. And he just struck me as that type of kid. So I'm excited about it.
So, Mike, I don't want to make this the Gavin Wimsatt podcast, but I got one more for you about it. It kind of has to do with you too. You had you had the same offensive coordinator for 3 years in a row, and John McNulty. Now Gavin Wimsatt's going to have the same one for at least 2 years in a row. How big of an impact is it just to keep the same OC and the same playbook and all that stuff instead of like some of your successors kind of all had a different coordinator each and every year?
Yeah, it's so hard. And the guys that played after me, bless those guys for being able to learn a system every single off season and then go through the spring and have to, input it and learn it and then be able to go execute it. For me, by the time I got to my senior year, I knew everything and I was coming up with some ideas that I would see in the NFL, and I would talk to John McNulty about it and we would implement them in our system, stuff with cadences and stuff with pre-snap motions and shifts and just different things that I saw in the NFL. And we would take some of that stuff and input it into the system. And that's the advantage of being in the same system for a while. For a young player, it's paramount. It's hard enough as a young player and being a quarterback to go out and execute. When you ask someone to learn a system every offseason, a different system, it's nearly impossible. So, I think having stability at that coaching spot in Sean Gleason, the offensive coordinator, I think will be really important for Gavin, but you'll see even more so with the team and the offense. Everyone now they'll be making the same line calls. They'll be making the same protection calls. The concepts are all the same. And the more longevity you can have in that role as an offensive coordinator, the better it's going to be for the whole offense.
For sure. So, Mike, this past year, you joined the Rutgers radio broadcasting team of Chris Carlin and Eric LeGrand. Talk to us a little bit about how that opportunity came together for you, and I guess some of the growing pains of announcing, because Richie and I had never done a podcast before. Getting that cadence down with your co-host it takes a little bit of time. Were you guys able to practice at all, like doing mock games or anything like that, or you just went into it first game, and got the camaraderie going?
Yeah, they say getting thrown to the fire. That's what it was for me. No, you know what? It was a lot of fun for me. This is the first second season, I guess, that I've been completely away for football. And then the week of the opener, that Monday or Tuesday, Kevin McConnell reached out to me and asked if I'd be interested in joining the broadcast with Chris and Eric, because Ray had stepped down to take a high school job. And it was kind of a no-brainer. The difficult part for me was I was just starting a new job, and the transition was kind of in mid-process. So I wasn't able to commit to doing everything. So we kind of came up with an idea that I would do the home games and JPO would do the road games, as he had done in the past. And really the first game of the year, the Temple, I think it was Temple. I wasn't on the call because, again, they had called me that like Wednesday or Thursday before the opener, and it just wasn't enough time to prepare and get right. So I went and sat in the booth for a little bit, listened to the three of them do it, and then I did it the following home game, and I had an absolute blast with it. I don't know if people liked it, if I was good or not, but I really enjoyed it. And for me, it scratched that itch of being around football and doing football without having to do a lot of football like a coach does. And I'm sure you guys see it, on the media side, getting to know the players and know the depth charts and know the types of systems that different teams run. That was really fun for me. And I'm hoping that they ask me to do it again next year, because I had a really good experience with Chris and Eric.
Well, Mike, I think you did a pretty damn good job, if you want me to say so myself. I do want to talk back about your coaching days, since you do actually have a couple former players on the roster currently, and Christian Dremel, Guy Fava. But one I want to talk about is Kyle Monangai. How much did he kind of remind you of Ray? Because I know a lot of people like to compare the two just because of the similar body styles and styles of running too, actually.
Yeah, no, they are definitely similar. I mean, Ray, if you talk about Ray was an all-pro running back in the NFL. I think the thing that separated him from a lot of players was his ability to burst and just run. There's maybe one or two guys a year that come out of college football that are able to do that. But when you talk about those two guys, I think the thing that people probably underestimate about both of them, do everything. They can pass protect, they can catch the football out of the backfield, and then they can run the football. Their running styles are very similar. Kyle, like Ray, is very patient and then has the ability to put his foot in the ground and get north and south with one step. And I think that was one of the things that Ray was so good at. Kyle probably lacks a little bit of that burst and breakaway speed that Ray has, or Ray had, but overall, I think those two guys compare very well. And you look at Kyle, each week he just continued to get more and more reps, and he earned every rep that he got. And even in high school, we had two of the best backs in the state at the time when I was coaching those guys at Don Bosco, and I voted Kyle first team all county over the other one, and the other one I think has a chance to play in the NFL. But that just shows you the type of player that Kyle is.
So, Mike, you've had about as wide of a perspective on Rutgers as somebody could have, from being a high school athlete recruited to go to Rutgers. You were a student at Rutgers. You were a Rutgers football player. You coached at Rutgers. You were a high school football coach who sent kids to Rutgers. And now you're on the media side for Rutgers. So you've got all these views of Rutgers that most people would be lucky to have one of them. You've got like 6 or 7. So talk a little bit about how much has changed at Rutgers through the path of your relationship with Rutgers and some of the challenges the program has overcome and still faces.
Yeah, I mean, it's talk about coming full circle and really getting to experience, everything. If you think back, when I was being recruited, it was a vision. There was no proof that it could be done because it hadn't been done prior to that. It was a belief in Coach Schiano and wanting to be a part of something special, and bringing New Jersey football and putting New Jersey football on the map. And luckily enough, we were there, and I was there at a really good time, and we were able to do it. But it was a vision. I think as the vision progressed and we had some success, it changed from a vision to, a state of this team and this program can achieve really good things. And the state of New Jersey got behind us, and has gotten behind the program. The people, in the tri-state have gotten behind Rutgers football. And I think when the team's good, part of being in a pro market, right? When the team's good, everyone loves Rutgers. The team's, struggling a little bit like they had the last couple of years, they kind of fall off the map a little bit. But as you see them continue to get more competitive, you're going to see people buy into Rutgers football again. And I think that's the exciting thing, guys and fans buying into a program that is competing in the best conference in college football and in the Big Ten East Division. I read some things that they might break up the divisions in the Big Ten, which would be the best thing for Rutgers. Not having to play that gauntlet every year, but it's really come full circle. And the guys that I spoke, that I played with and still speak to, I think we take great pride in being a part of that beginning process to have the opportunity to go to this Big Ten and play the teams that they do.
So Mike, I want to go back to your high school days. I know you kind of mentioned it a little bit before. Obviously, there's a ton of Big North talent. What's the main thing holding these Big North guys from going to Rutgers? Obviously, you made the jump. Obviously, Darius Hamilton, Leonte Carew, a couple other Bosco guys have made that leap. But what's the main thing just holding them back right now?
I think it depends on the level of prospects. There's some guys that just don't want to stay home. They want to get away. They've been here their whole lives and they want to go somewhere else, and they should have that opportunity and they'll succeed there because there's so many good players. But, I think when you're talking about, the 4- and 5-star players that you're competing with the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Penn States every year, you've got to prove on the field that you can compete. And, frankly, we haven't done that yet. We've gotten closer, but we have not done that consistently where you can say there's a 5-star recruit out of North Jersey in the Big North, and there's a reason for him to stay home. You're going to get a couple guys that take flyers. You look like what Anthony Davis did when he committed. But there was a little bit of proof at the time that we were going in the right direction. I think you're starting to see that now. There's proof that they're starting to get it turned around and they're starting to go in the right direction. The transfer portal is going to help expedite that process. And instead of being a 4 or 5 year turnaround, I think he can do it in 2 or 3 because you get some of those needs, and which they've definitely addressed this offseason. But I think you have to win, especially now. And nowadays, it's way different than when I was coming out. There was no social media. There were no recruiting camps. There were nothing. If you got lucky enough to get invited to the rivals camp back then, that's all that there was. There wasn't a camp every weekend now. So I think the bottom line is they need to put a product on the field that gets, top recruits excited. And I think they're really, really close to doing that.
Yeah, I think that's like the big what if is if Schiano didn't leave for the NFL the first time around. The Big Ten was right around the corner. We were just hitting our stride with recruiting. Like we had landed like the top kid in the state 2 or 3 years in a row at that point. So yeah, I think what you're seeing with basketball now, you're seeing, consistent, relevant teams making the tournament. You have sellouts every night. Like I think that same thing could happen with football again, as long as like you said, we're competitive. And right now, we're winning easy games, but we're not being competitive in big games.
Yeah, and again, it's from where it was when Coach Schiano came back. There was a lot of work to do. So it's definitely going to take some time. But you can see in the last 2 years, and really the first year being a COVID year, and you played an abbreviated schedule, but you see a ton of improvement and you see steps in the right direction. And I really think with the transfer portal this offseason, you're going to see an even bigger jump from last year to this year. And, once you're able to kind of get over that hump and get to 6, 7, 8 games and get to bowl games consistently, that's when you're poised to have one of those breakout years like we did in 06. And that changes the whole ball game.
In terms of recruiting wise, Brian Toll, how close was he? Was it just a lack of wins, or was it something else? Like, you have to, I'm sure you were in his ear nonstop.
Yeah, no, I definitely was. I mean, his older brother played up there. He was a successful North Jersey running back and went on to have a good career up there. At the time, a lot of Jersey kids went up there, especially from the Catholic schools up in North Jersey.
Yeah.
He was close. I think he was. If it was up to him, I think he would have came. I think there were some other people, family, and some stuff that really kind of swayed him to go up that way. But listen, I think it might have been a little bit different for him if he came by us. But it's the way it is.
For sure. That area was, it still is a hotbed for talent, but especially around the early 2000s, a lot of NFL guys coming out of the Big North. Who was the best player you played in high school?
I mean, it pains me to say it, but Brian Cushing, probably from Bergen Catholic. If you're just going to ask who's the best player that I ever shared a field with, I'll say Brian Toll. I think Brian was better than Brian Cushing in high school. Obviously, Cushing turned out to have a great career and a long time NFL career. But Brian Cushing, he was a junior my senior year in high school, and he was playing middle linebacker at 6'2", 225, veins popping out of everywhere in his arm, ran a 4.5. I mean, if you drew up a high school kid that was going to go play in the NFL, it was that kid, and he did everything. And the following year, his senior year, was him and Michael Ray Garvin show at Giant Stadium for the championship, where he just dominated, played receiver, played quarterback, played tight end, played linebacker, just a do-it-all type player. And it kind of reminds me of like what Greg Olson did when Greg was younger. And in high school, obviously, he went on to play tight end. Brian went on to play linebacker, but both of those guys at the high school level and at the younger levels just dominated in every sense of the word.
So, Mike, are you planning to make it to any of the spring practices? And if you are, what are you most excited to see out of the team?
Yeah, I definitely want to try to make it down as much as I can and get around the team. I'm really, I think two things. The first thing is see what some of these transfers look like in person. I know that they've kind of rebuilt the offensive line through the transfer portal, and that's always been, kind of a topic of conversation as far as development. The thing with offensive linemen, it takes time to get those guys developed. They don't come in and play in their first or second year. They're going to take 2-3 years before they're ready to go compete. So you get some guys that have been through that process already and are ready to go right now. Excited to see them. Excited to see, obviously, the quarterback and see Gavin really kind of have an opportunity to develop and really learn the system. I think last year, I haven't talked to anyone, but he was just out there winging it. I guarantee you he wasn't really going through progressions and really had thought behind the decisions he was making. And he still played well. So I'm excited to see him and really hopefully have an understanding of the offense and be able to compete, at a high level. And then on the defensive side, I think the linebacker position, we lost some good players at the position, some guys that I think have a chance to play at the next level. And I think that's part of building a program and rebuilding where we are now, is creating depth. So when guys leave, new guys step in and they have an opportunity, you don't miss a beat.
So, Mike, obviously you got into coaching after playing. You coached at Kane, you coached at Wagner. I think you went back to Kane and even at Rutgers for a little bit. Just have you ever thought about coming back? Because I know every time there's an opening on the staff, you're like one of the first names mentioned on the message boards.
I know. I like it. It keeps my name alive. No, I haven't. I did for a while, and that was part of the reason why I took the job up at Bosco, was to go there and run an offense and have an opportunity to jump back to college. But while I was at Bosco, I got offered the quarterback job up at Syracuse, and I said no to Coach Favors. And not a lot of people know that, but it was kind of an epiphany for me. It was either I was going to say yes and I was going to jump in and dive in head first and be a college football coach and live that lifestyle, or I was going to take a step away and get out of football and, kind of get back into the business world and create a business, which is what I'm doing now. And there's just too many variables to being a coach. I'm engaged. I'm going to have a family. I want to spend time with them. I want to play golf on the weekends. There's a lot of other things that I really enjoy doing that you can't do as a coach. And it's a sacrifice that those guys make. And it's a hard life for a lot of them because they're all over the place. And, it just wasn't for me. So, keep using my name on any job openings to kind of keep the buzz going, but you won't see me back.
Yeah, I mean, it's just as hard as a recruiting analyst. I'll tell you that much. My golf weekends are shot now.
Yeah, every single weekend.
Yeah, it's a football, like you said, it's a football camp every weekend now. And I'm like, God damn it, dude! Just let me go hit the range real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But no, other than that, I think the last one I really got for you is you spent some time in the NFL. You've been behind some crazy good quarterbacks between Hasselbeck, I think Cutler at one time too, right?
Mm-hmm. And Tom Brady.
I was going to say a guy named Tom Brady.
Yeah. Who's the best? I guess who was the most influential on you in the NFL between any of these big names? It could even be like one of the backups, also.
Matt Hasselbeck was instrumental in my first year. So I'm from New Jersey, born and raised. I got drafted by the Seahawks, and I'm all of a sudden living on the West Coast, 3,000 miles away from my family. So it wasn't as much football as it was off the field. And I spent Thanksgiving at Matt's house. I spent Christmas at Matt's house with his family. He just opened his doors and let me in like I was part of his family. And you just saw the type of man he was. I think the thing that he showed me how to do was how to be a professional quarterback. The NFL is way different than college. It is a business. At the end of the day, guys go home to their families and they're fighting every day to put food on put food on the table for their families. In college, you go back to the dorm room and you hang out with all the guys and you play video games and then you go out at night and you have dinner and you go to sleep. Not like that in the NFL. So he taught me what it was like to be an NFL football player, NFL quarterback, but I really had a chance to see the type of man that he was, the way he loved his kids, the way he spent time with his wife. And that I think was the biggest impact on me, and it was probably more off the field than it was on the field.
So Mike, I can't let you go without telling a Tom Brady story. What is something that sticks out to you about your time with the Patriots, even if it was just for a short period of time, that like Brady's just a maniac? Like, what is something you could tell us about Tom Brady?
I've got two good stories. The first one is pretty quick. The second one's a little better, but I got up there and Billy O'Brien was the offensive coordinator at the time. And he said, I flew in from Seattle Sunday. I got signed by them on Friday. I flew in Sunday. He said, meet me in the office at 6 a.m. Monday so we can start to install the offense. Now, this is in May. There's no game in sight. They have won, 4 or 5 championships already. There's nothing in sight for those guys in May to be in the office by 5:30 in the morning. So I pull in like 5:45 and I'm waiting to get in because I don't have a key card. Billy comes in, lets me in, shows me my locker, put my stuff down. And the locker next to me is Tom. The other locker next to me is Randy Moss. And both of those lockers, it's what I walked into. Both of those lockers are, discombobulated and look like someone's been in there. So I said to Billy O'Brien, the offensive coordinator, I said, are those guys here? And he's like, yeah, they're here every day at 4:45. They work out from 5 to 6 before the team gets here. And at 6 to 6:30, they'll have breakfast. And then from 6:30 to 7, they get ready for meetings and then team meetings at 7 a.m. This is in May. It's Tom Brady and Randy Moss, 2 Hall of Famers that have no business being there at 4:45 in the morning in May. It just shows you the work ethic when no one's watching. The other quick one I have with Tom is Brandon Tate, who was a receiver at North Carolina. He was one of the receivers up there at the time. Spent a couple of years, I think, up there. But he was new and I was new. So we stayed after practice one day to throw, kind of work on some of the concepts and do some stuff. And, we had a good session. The next day of practice, we're running a comeback. And the way the Patriots ran it was 20 yards back to 18 yards. And most of the time it's 18 back to 16 because it's all done off of steps. They didn't count steps up there. So Brandon had always counted steps, and he always got to 18 yards. They wanted it at 20. So Brandon runs it at 18 and Tom throws him the ball. Well, he doesn't throw him the ball. He throws it 30 yards over his head. And as Brandon's coming back to the huddle, he points at him and he says, if you ever effing want to play for me and catch balls for me, you're going to effing run the route at 20 yards. And I was looking at Brian Hoyer, one of the other backup quarterbacks at the time. I was like, holy shoot, like this guy is crazy. So I was like, how did he even know that the route was at 18 yards? We went back and watched the film. It was 18 yards. So I asked Tom the next day, I said, how'd you know he was at 18 yards? Like it was individual routes on air. It wasn't during a live session. He's like, I was counting his steps and I knew he didn't get to 20 yards. So I threw it over his head. You know, the intuition for someone to watch that and do that, just the attention to detail, you know, that's why he's the best to ever do it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think you have much resistance there. I think he's the best football player to ever lace it up. And he was still playing nearly 12 years after that moment that you were on the team with him. So that's insane.
That's pretty nuts. Mike, I don't want to let
you know, MVP level.
I got to bother you for one more question. Since it's storytelling time right now, what's your best Schiano story?
That you can tell.
That you could tell. No, I guess you're not going back into coaching. You can tell us whatever you want.
That's true.
Yeah, I got to talk to him before the games. Though doing the radio now. So the best Schiano story that I have. I mean, there are a ton. I think the best one personally for me was, you know, we were talking about spring ball a little earlier, and going into my sophomore year, I was kind of the starter. There wasn't a ton of competition. I kind of, you know, was taking all the reps with the ones, and I was, you know, kind of feeling good about myself, kind of on cruise control. Like I'm going through spring, you know, I see the same look every day. I kind of know what's going on. And one day we're going through 7-on-7, and he decides he's going to get behind me with the megaphone, and he's just going to scream the entire play in my ear about how I'm slow, I'm fat, I can't run, I can't make quick decisions, you know, and he's trying to frustrate and fluster me. And he literally did it for the entire period. And I was like, it was a 10-play period. I think we were like 3 for 10 that period, which is absolutely horrible in 7-on-7. So it worked. It definitely worked. And he knew what he was doing. There were a couple other times that he did it throughout the spring. And after that first time, you know, I kind of learned my lesson, and you just kind of lock in a little bit more and you focus a little bit more. And, you know, just little things that he does to make you a better player. And there's a million stories like that with different players and different positions. And that's just one that I have of many, but it's one that sticks with me, and it's something that I always think about.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Mike, really appreciate your time. Is there anything you want to plug or talk about before we sign off?
No, you know what? Not really. I mean, I think right now Rutgers basketball is really fun to watch. Hopefully they can get the win this weekend and then win a couple games in the tournament and get invited to the big dance. But, you know, listen, I'm just enjoying being part of the media and doing the games on the radio and watching the development of these kids and the team. Just like all you other guys, I'm might be the biggest fan of everyone right now. So it's a fun time to be a part of it. That's for sure. And I appreciate you guys having me on today.
Oh, no problem. We appreciate all your time. Have safe travels to wherever you're going. Happy vacation if it's a vacation. And yeah, so it's been another episode of the Night Report podcast, guys. We're signing off. Thanks for listening.